Most people define financial freedom by a number, a specific amount in the bank, a portfolio value, a net worth figure that feels large enough to signal arrival. And the pursuit of financial freedom becomes the pursuit of that number. Earn more, save more, invest more, until the number is reached and the freedom presumably follows. But financial freedom isn't a number. It's a structural condition. And the difference between those two definitions changes what gets built and whether the building actually produces what it was supposed to produce. The structural definition of financial freedom is specific, the condition in which the obligations of your financial life are met by income that doesn't require your active presence to generate. Not the condition of having a lot of money, not the condition of a high net worth. The condition in which the ongoing cost of your life, housing, food, transportation, the recurring obligations that exist regardless of whether you work, is covered by income that arrives without your direct labor. Passive income, investment income, business income that runs without your daily involvement. Whatever the source, the defining characteristic is the absence of the requirement to show up and work for the money to arrive. This distinction matters because a large number doesn't automatically produce this condition. A person with $2 million in a savings account earning minimal interest, living on a lifestyle that costs more than that interest generates, is not financially free. They have a large number. They're depleting it. Every month, the number shrinks. Every month, the runway to the point where the money runs out gets shorter. That's not freedom. That's a countdown. A person with $400,000 in a portfolio generating 6% annually, living a lifestyle that costs $20,000 a year, is financially free. The income covers the obligations, without their presence, indefinitely. The number is smaller. The condition is real. Financial freedom is about the ratio, not the absolute number. The ratio between income that doesn't require presence and obligations that require income to be met. When passive income exceeds obligations, the structural condition of freedom exists. Not comfort, not luxury, not the ability to do anything imaginable. The specific structural condition in which continued presence in the labor market is optional, not required. That optionality is what freedom actually is, not the feeling of having enough. The structural reality of not needing to show up for the financial foundation to hold. Most people never reach this condition, not because they don't earn enough, but because they build toward the wrong target. They accumulate assets without examining whether those assets generate income. They build net worth without building income-producing position. They reach the number they imagined was freedom and discover that the number, without the income structure underneath it, is just a large savings account with a finite runway. The structural condition of freedom requires building income, specifically income that doesn't require presence. Not just accumulating assets, not just reaching a net worth target. Building the income-generating capacity that makes the presence optional. If nobody in your life is talking about this, subscribe. Someone should be. Income and freedom are not the same thing. Most people assume they're on the same continuum, that more income leads eventually to freedom. And in one narrow sense, that's true. Higher income generates more surplus. More surplus can be deployed into income-producing assets. More income-producing assets can eventually cover obligations. But the path from high income to freedom is not automatic, and most high earners never complete it. High income creates a specific structural risk that's rarely discussed directly. Lifestyle inflation. As income rises, the lifestyle that feels normal tends to rise with it. The apartment becomes a house, the house becomes a larger one, the car becomes a better one, the vacations become more frequent and more expensive, the children's schools, the experiences, the conveniences, all of them calibrate upward to match what the income can support. And what the income can support becomes what the income is required to support. The high earner's obligations have expanded to meet the income, which means the income is no longer surplus, it's required. And required income is not the same as freedom. It's dependency at a higher level. This is the trap of the high income without the structure underneath. The obligations require the income. The income requires the presence. The presence is therefore not optional. The high earner who stops working doesn't maintain their lifestyle on investment income, because the investment income was never built to cover a lifestyle calibrated to a high salary. They have to keep working, not because they're poor, because the structure of their financial life was built entirely on earned income, and the obligations that accumulated around that earned income require it to continue. High income, high obligations. No passive income covering those obligations. No freedom. The path from high income to freedom requires a specific intervention, deliberately not allowing lifestyle to consume the entire income, protecting a portion, deploying it into income-producing assets, allowing the income from those assets to accumulate rather than absorbing it into lifestyle. This is structurally simple. It's behaviorally difficult, because the income that could build freedom is also the income that could fund a better lifestyle right now. And the lifestyle improvement is immediate and visible. The freedom it prevents is distant and invisible. Which is why most high earners choose the lifestyle and find themselves at peak income years with high obligations, minimal passive income, and no structural alternative to continued work. The income was always large enough to build freedom. The structure was never built to convert that income into it. Not because of ignorance, because the immediate rewards of lifestyle expansion consistently outweigh the distant rewards of structural freedom, until the moment when the absence of freedom becomes a visible cost. And by then, the obligations have been building for years. The passive income has not. The gap between what's required and what the passive income covers is significant. And closing that gap from a position of high obligations and minimal passive income is harder than it would have been from a position of moderate obligations and a deliberate build toward income-producing assets. The structural condition of financial freedom gets built the same way any compounding position gets built. Slowly, deliberately, through consistent decisions that prioritize the income-producing asset over the lifestyle improvement it could alternatively fund. Not dramatically, not through sacrifice that's unsustainable, through a consistent margin, protected from lifestyle expansion, deployed into positions that generate income independent of presence. The first structural requirement is knowing the target, not a net worth number, an income number. What does this lifestyle cost annually? What passive income would be required to cover that cost indefinitely without depleting the principal generating it? That number, the annual passive income required, is the actual target, not the portfolio value in the abstract, the income-generating capacity the portfolio needs to produce. Working backward from that number, to the asset base required to generate it, to the surplus required to build that asset base, to the timeline that surplus produces, gives a structural picture of what freedom actually costs to build. The second structural requirement is protecting the surplus, not the surplus that's left over after lifestyle, a predetermined portion of income taken off the table before lifestyle decisions are made. The lifestyle builds from what remains, not from what's available before the allocation. This reversal, paying the income-producing asset first, living from the rest, is the structural mechanism that prevents lifestyle inflation from consuming the entire income. The surplus doesn't grow by earning more and hoping something is left. It grows by taking it first and building lifestyle from the remainder. The third structural requirement is deploying the surplus into income-producing assets, not savings accounts, not assets that store value without generating income. Income-producing positions, dividends, rental income, business income that doesn't require daily presence, portfolio income from investments structured to generate ongoing returns. Each deployment builds the passive income number. Each increase in the passive income number moves the structural condition of freedom closer. The distance to freedom isn't measured in years of additional income. It's measured in the gap between current passive income and the passive income required to cover obligations. Close that gap through consistent surplus deployment into income-producing positions, and the structural condition eventually arrives. It doesn't arrive as a moment. It arrives as a threshold crossed quietly, when the passive income first exceeds the obligations, when the presence becomes optional for the first time. And that threshold, crossed through consistent structural building rather than through a windfall or a number, is more durable than any lump sum, because it was built from income-producing capacity, not from accumulated savings being depleted. The asset base keeps generating. The obligations keep being covered. The presence stays optional. Indefinitely. Subscribe if this is the framework you've been missing. Like this if it reframed the target.